the New York City Police Department, there was a lieutenant. His name is Patrick Gordon. He's the head of the Guardians Association. This was an organization that's been involved in the New York City Police Department for many years. It was once heralded by Eric Sanders, who was the president back in the early 90s, all the way to about 1997, who is no secret. He's not in the same aisle, we'll say, as Eric Adams, who's the New York City mayor, but they were both police officers at the same time. Eric Adams will later on become the head of the 100 Blacks in Law Enforcement. But Eric Sanders was the president, and as many have told me, many people, that was the last time the Guardians was a real organization in the New York City Police Department that had any kind of weight. So Patrick Gordon is the Guardians president. And here he's going to be talking, I guess, at this is some kind of a meeting somewhere, and he's talking to Eric Adams directly. Now, he's going to be, I'd say, making some rather, questionable statements. But the thing here is his rhetoric needs to be listened to because it's quite disturbing. And I don't know why he's appealing to Eric Adams for stuff from the New York City Police Department, but just know that also whoever filmed this, I don't know who the source is, just to show you this seems to be maybe like a Guardians event. And that just shows you what these people think of him and the Guardians. So let me play this for you, and then we'll get to what just happened today in regards to this.
That I receive a lot is a lot of black members of the NYPD says that it feels like black and browns are under attack right now in the agency, right? And I know we had some issues that happened a couple of months ago, but we know the agency is 180 years old, and this is not the first time they've seen something unfortunate. But it seems like the response, and this is not my words, this is the words of over 2,000 paid members. They said it seems like that the response is that all blacks and all browns are, we're all, it's not in to be black or brown, right? And some of the things that they use that's being used is some of the demotion of black executives. We had Tariq Shepard, we had Paul Gamble, we had some Latinos that was out, so we had Miguel Iglesias. So now I receive increased pressure, like, hey, what are you doing? What is the Guardians doing? Because it's just a feel. It may be for a number of reasons, and they may not know the reasons. There's got to be things behind the scenes that we don't know. But the appearance is that. The second concern that I'm receiving highly is it appears that everything is a tie now. Someone brought to my attention every promotion that we've had since January has had somebody with the last name, make a chief, right? And we've only had maybe 1-2 blacks make it, but it's a whole bunch of ties walking across the stage. And they pointed out the chief of the department is a tie, the XO of the department is a tie, the CEO of the office is a tie, personnel people. So they're like, when we see one group running things, and this is the way it looks. And again, it may be things that I don't know, right? So, this is why I want to put it on you. And I know you run a big city, like the police department is just one portion of what you're responsible for. And so we just wanted to put out there that these are the concerns, and maybe you can help us. We can have some conversations because there might be things that people are not paying attention to. So we can put on a radar.
Thank you.
Yeah. So as you heard, the rhetoric there was quite disturbing. He's making reference to people like Tariq Shepard, who was the Deputy Commissioner of Public Information. He also referenced Miguel Iglesias, who was the head of Internal Affairs. And Miguel Iglesias was involved in a corruption scandal. And his mentor, I believe, Jeffrey Madry, who he's trying to refer to without saying, was also involved in corruption scandal. So the people he's referencing are involved in corruption, bad things. So that's one part. Second part is, as you heard, is referencing. He's trying to reference race-based promotions, okay? And while he's doing this, he's putting down Italian Americans, people with vowels in their name. And, if the roles were reversed, and let's say this was an Italian or an Irish person or a Jewish person, and they're complaining to a Caucasian or, Irish, Italian, or Asian mayor, there would be riots in the street saying, why aren't we getting promoted, but all these black and brown people are. So that's the gist of this is outright, descriptive. This is just terrible stuff. So why don't we pull up first what I said, because I have my own tweet I put out. before I put this statement out with the Italian American Civil Rights League, because I am a board member here and this was discussed. So I put this out. NYPD Lieutenant Patrick Gordon should step down as president of the NYPD Guardians, be modified or suspended, demoted, disciplined, and transferred at the very least. Racism and discrimination should not be tolerated in the NYPD or by public servants. And then the Italian American Civil Rights League had a statement on this because they released the letter, and they had the Italian American Civil Rights League has sent this letter to Mayor Eric Adams in response to the irresponsible rhetoric targeted toward Italian Americans. We built this city, Eric. Show us the respect we have earned. So I was going to actually now, I wanted to actually read a little bit about this because it's just important to me that, I don't understand why this is being tolerated here. So this is, we actually wrote this out to the mayor himself. So it says, to the Honorable Mayor Eric Adams, I write this letter in my individual capacity as an Italian American, but also a member of the board of directors for the Italian American Civil Rights League and on the League's behalf. In a city as diverse and storied as New York, the NYPD has long stood as a symbol of both authority and aspiration, a force built on the shoulders of hardworking men and women from every ethnic background. So it is with grave concern and deep offense that we respond to recent remarks made by Lieutenant Patrick Gordon, head of the NYPD Guardians Association, who claimed there have been, quote, too many Italian Americans, end quote, promoted within the department since January, suggesting without evidence that those promotions were based on ethnicity rather than merit. Let us be clear. Such a statement is not divisive. It is discriminatory. It echoes the very prejudices that once kept generations of Italian Americans from fair treatment in public service and American society at large. For decades, Italian Americans were viewed as outsiders, stereotyped, marginalized, and scapegoated, from the brutal 1891 lynching of 11 Italian Americans in New Orleans to the World War II intermittence and FBI surveillance. During the 20th century, our community bore the weight of suspicion and exclusion. Even in New York, a city where Italian Americans helped build neighborhoods, raise families, and serve with honor, we were often told we were, let's see the second page, please. Too many, too foreign, too different. The New York Times even went so far as to label Italian Americans vermin. Today, when Italian American officers rise through the ranks of the NYPD, it should be seen for what it is, the result of generations of dedication, sacrifice, and service, not favoritism. These promotions reflect merit, discipline, and a commitment to duty that transcends ethnic background. To reduce these hard-earned advancements to mere matters of ancestry is to erase the individual excellence of each officer and insult the integrity of the department's promotional process. Listen, there's more. You could read this if you want on my X. You can also read it on the Italian American Civil Rights League X, the Instagram, the website. Listen, I'm a board member, okay, and I raised this with my other fellow board members because the NYPD Columbia Society, their association, they're a disgrace, in my opinion. They buddied up to this guy immediately. They have their own conflicting issues because they're awarding awards to Chief of Training, Martin Monterosso, who's buddying up and cozying up to a known mob associate and self-admitted criminal. So she is violating the very rules that the NYPD state you can't do. She's also inflicting punishment and damage to other officers and recruits by disciplining them, but she doesn't look at herself in the mirror. And just to go back in time, just so you understand, I know people say this, and I'll be the first to say this right here, because I always say what other people are thinking, but won't say. Her father, who everyone says is great, was the chief of OCCB, which would have been in charge of the march operations. March operations being when they go and raid your nightclub. Mr. right there, self-admitted criminal mob associate in the middle, dancing with his shirt there with Martin Monterosso. He used to own a place by the name of Jimmy's Bronx Cafe, which somehow never was shut down despite God knows the fiasco that went on there on a daily and nightly basis. But the chief of OCCB at that time was Martin Monterosso's father. So we're asking, even though it is a while ago, but how far back does this association with Jimmy Rodriguez go with the Matarazzo family, you know? But we're supposed to sit down and say she's great because she turns a blind eye to officers who, I don't know, leave early, might be abusing overtime. Also, come in, I don't know, late, don't put in slips for that because, that's when you hear, oh, this person's great. It just means they turn a blind eye to infractions that would nonetheless take down a regular officer, but you're quote unquote hooked up because Miss Matarazzo. And the Columbia Society honors her, gives her awards, and neglects everything else that happens. And other officers, maybe such as one like myself that was completely ignored, that was terminated for things that this chief is doing today. You wrongfully and knowingly associating with someone reasonably believed to have engaged in or likely to have engaged in criminal activity. So this whole thing in a nutshell is the Italian American Civil Rights League has stepped in. They have done something where everyone's complaining, but it seems nobody wants to do anything about it. And we'll see how Eric Adams actually responds because, he had no response and he's known for his controversial rhetoric, every day. And I was in a police department. I kicked those crackers' ass. Remember that one?
Every day in the police department, I kicked those crackers' ass, man. I was unbelievable.
So I'm sure he is going to try to, scuttle this, and act like he didn't hear anything. But also today there was a case in the Supreme Court that mentions racism and retribution and all that against Caucasian people, and that and a workplace that happens also, and that should not be tolerated either. So what's good for the goose, it's good for the gander, I say. So if we're gonna not go and say people can't be racist, I guess if you're Caucasian towards blacks, which I would definitely be, not for, and say you should be disciplined or terminated for that, then you have to say it when it's the other way around. And also, Patrick Gordon has disgraced the Guardians by his own rhetoric because from a prestigious organ, and I know plenty of people that were in this, in their heyday, and Eric Sanders, who was once the president, that does not represent what the Guardians are for and what they stood for. But under Eric Adams and his administration, I expect actually what happened because, as you know, Eric Adams could care less about anything other than himself. So good job by the Italian American Civil Rights League, and let's hope we see some action, whether it be from the New York State Police Department or maybe Patrick Gordon just has a spine and actually steps down as the president of the Guardians at the very least. But that shouldn't be enough either, because I'm disgusted as a former NYPD officer and an Italian American, and so are many, many, many others. So shout out to the Italian American Civil Rights League.